Welcome to Coordinate Plane Notes with Mrs. Weinman. It's your lucky day. So we are going to start off by brainstorming of what a coordinate plane looks like. And if you looked ahead in your packet, you would have seen some coordinate planes in your packet. So you may call it a grid, you may call it a graph, but its official name is a coordinate plane. A coordinate plane is made up of an x and a y axis. And the x-axis is the horizontal axis. It's just like a number line when we were graphing problems before. So the very middle we'll label as 0, and then to the right is the positive direction. And your spacing doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to use a ruler, but you just need to have roughly the same amount of space in between items. The negative direction is to the left, starting from 0 and working your way out. So that's the x-axis. It's also called the horizontal axis. Now the y-axis is the vertical axis, and it goes right through 0, 0, or 0 on the horizontal axis. Okay, so that's my y-axis. Above sea level going up are positive numbers, and below sea level going down are your negative numbers. This is our vertical axis. Okay. Now you can kind of look at this part of the letter Y right here. Kind of looks like it goes up and down. So if I make a letter Y, traditionally, that's the up and down part, so that will help you remember that that's the up and down axis. No part of an X goes up or down, it goes side to side. All right, so now that I have my axes, I need to also brainstorm the other key pieces to my coordinate plane. And there are 4 quadrants in a coordinate plane. You may remember this from last year or the year before. A coordinate plane is labeled with its quadrants with Roman numerals. And quadrant 1 is in the top right. This is the word quadrant that I'm writing here. Okay, quadrant 1 is in the top right. Quadrant 2 is right here. Quadrant 3, and quadrant 4 is IV. Okay, so those quadrants will help you give directions to someone. If you were trying to say which way to go, you could say, hey, look at quadrant 2, and they would know to look at the top left part of the graph. Also, on a coordinate plane, we label coordinates. Okay. Another name for a coordinate is an ordered pair. And ordered pairs come in the form of x, y. So they describe a certain place on the coordinate plane by giving the x location first, the left or right, and the y location second, the up or down. So for example, if I put a coordinate on my coordinate plane, an ordered pair, let's say I went to this spot right here, and I'm going to label that point A. To get to that spot, I first have to go left or right. That's the x direction right here. So left or right would be left 1 and then up 2. I went in the positive direction 1 and then in the positive direction up 2. So the label for point A would be 1, 2. We always use our parentheses and we have the comma in between the points. Okay? So what if I said graph point B, and I said point B is at -1, 2. So -1 is to the left on the x-axis. Remember, this is a x, y. We go left or right, and then up or down. So -1 is to the left 1, and then +2 is up 2. So point B would be right here. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 more coordinates to graph. going to scooch this up a little bit. Point C, I would like you to graph at -1, -2. And point D, please graph that at 1, -2. So pause the video right now, go ahead and graph them, and then we'll check with your answer key to see if you have them. Okay, so hopefully you have point C in quadrant 3 and point D in quadrant 4. There's what their points were there as well. Now what if I had a 0 as one of my coordinates? So I'm going to go down here, let me grab a different color. I'm going to go down here and write point E, and I want point E to be at 0, 3. So 0, 3 means to go 0 in the x direction. So we start at the origin. Oh, origin, we haven't talked about that. I'll add that word in a second. But we start at the intersection of the x and y axis, and we go 0 left or right. So we're still at that main starting spot, and then we go up 3. So it would be right here. It's hard to see with my two different colors, but that would be point E. Okay. Now since I use the word origin, let's add that in. So the origin is where the two axes intersect. That would be right there. And the origin has its own coordinates. Its coordinates would be 0, 0. Okay? All right, let's do one more with a 0 in the coordinate. So let's do point point F. And let's make that one at -2, 0. So looking at my coordinate plane, -2 in the x direction is to the left 2, and then 0 up or down means you stay right on that x-axis there, and that's point F. All right. Now one last thing I want to talk about is the quadrants and what type of coordinates belong in those quadrants. So if you look closely at these points A, B, C, and D, I gave the same general number, 1 and 2. Sometimes I had a negative in front, sometimes I didn't. Look at how they relate to the quadrants. In quadrant 1, A was at 1, 2, and those are both positive numbers. So we could describe all the points inside quadrant 1 with the description of a positive number and then another positive number. Well, how would we describe quadrant 2? To get to the area over here, we would go left in the negative direction, so the x-coordinate would be a negative, and then the y-coordinate, we need to go up, and that would be a positive. Go ahead and add in what these two descriptions would look like. So what would quadrant 3 look like? And what would quadrant 4 look like? So you should have a negative negative for quadrant 3 and a positive negative for quadrant 4. Okay, and that should do it for your little refresher of the coordinate plane, and hopefully you're good to go now on your following pages.